Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone, especially to His Excellency Dr. Marjan Cencen, Mr. Barat, Dr. Shom, and my co-speaker, Mr. Sunil Mathur. And it's truly an honor to be here talking to this august audience. And I hope I'll keep it quick and short, but I think some of the very interesting points that were touched by Mr. Barat, as well as in his opening address by His Excellency, as well as Mr. Mathur, which is, these are truly unique times. And when you are in the middle of times which are potentially kind of once in a more than a century events, that leads to what we call tectonic shifts in how businesses get done. They also lead to certain innovations and adoption and changing habits that usually would take what we call generational changes. But in certain times like these and circumstances like these, you end up probably seeing these changes happening over years, and in some cases even happening even faster than that. One of the examples of that is that I see is working from home. And Mr. Mathur will probably vouch for it because Siemens does a lot of various kind of equipments and businesses which would have a direct impact on how the working habits will change, how the educational habits are changing with the kind of the education moving online. And a lot of these things that were till now not heard of or were not kind of part of the mainstream are now almost over the last few months are becoming kind of part of the mainstream in a way that was never imagined. And a lot of that is for the good. Obviously, coming out of these crises, you will probably see massive fallout in terms of economic growth, as well as potentially unemployment and other crises in terms of the socioeconomic indicators, etc. But over a period of time, it's also a point, as I said, will change habits in a very, very massive way. In our own business, we see digitization, movement from physical payments to more digital payments has been almost on a record basis. And interestingly, movement to digitization happening in the kind of the smaller towns and cities from a demographic standpoint, as well as happening in age groups, which we thought are not digitally savvy. I think those are the kind of the trends that we're starting to see a lot more. So with that opening remark, let me just kind of quickly jump into the topic at hand, which is the financial services side. And what are we seeing on the financial services side? There are, as some of you would know, that Paytm is primarily a payments platform, and we are also kind of building and broadening our kind of scope in the financial services space. But what underlines potentially what's driving the changes in the financial services sector, and what do we see, whether it's domestically in India, and how do we see the kind of the business environment changing globally? And what does it mean in terms of potentially opportunities as well as the expectations from startups, so to say. There are, in my view, and as we think through and look through the broader range of opportunities which are popping up, we see there are about 4 mega trends which are kind of driving the kind of the changing landscape of the financial services sector and how the business is getting done. And when I look at those 4 mega trends, I'll kind of bucket them into customer experience, technology, innovation, and disruption. I think a theme that Mr. Mathur kind of very nicely used. Usage of data, that's the third theme that we're kind of seeing, which is leading to a massive shift in terms of how product and customer journeys are getting created. And finally, creating products to bank the unbanked. And that's kind of one of the biggest themes that we are seeing, which is driving that a lot of financial services sector has still been serving what we call the top of the pyramid. But the minute you start going down the pyramid, opportunities lie, as well as where there has been massive under penetration as well as under servicing that has happened across the across the various products. So let me just kind of quickly deep dive into each one of these. Customer experience. There is massive customer expectation which is rising. It's almost coming to a point where organizations are saying, I'm stopping things rather than stopping things to get worse, I need to make the things better. The standards are really, really high. So when we look at, even in financial services, people are seeking experiences. It's almost like watching a movie on a Netflix or hailing a taxi through a Uber, or connecting with various people in terms of social media and communication. And financial services product delivery, and the nature of what those products look like, is becoming almost that high, where a lot of large population of people getting exposed to these kind of service offerings across various other segments are also seeking similar level of customer experience from their financial institutions, which to some extent have not really kind of moved that fast on that dimension. Similarly, when we're looking at customer expectation is kind of also leading to some very structural changes which are happening in the market, which is one change which is clearly happening is the state-owned banks losing market share to kind of the new age banks and the NBFCs. And mind you, this is not only a phenomenon that we're seeing in India, this is a phenomenon that has happened globally. It's just that it's kind of following up in this country. But more important phenomena that we'll probably see over the next kind of many years and kind of decades is how this would accelerate even further towards technology companies and move away from the incumbent and the kind of the more traditional financial institutions, including aspects like deposits and insurance, which normally see, as I say, generational shifts, are already starting to see yearly shifts in terms of movements of market share, etc. The adoption of technology as a kind of the technology disruption that we've been kind of keep talking about, which is a very key mega trend in my view. There is, if you look at, just to kind of give you an example, we have the largest bank in the country, which is State Bank of India, still has about $300 billion of loans under management. One of the biggest banks in the world, and SBI was set up in 1955. So around with a presence of about 65 years or so, they've created that kind of a loan book. A similar example, ICBC, which is a China-owned state-owned bank, they have roughly about a $2.6 trillion loan book over the last 40 years of existence. One of the biggest digital lender in China right now is a company called Ant Financial, which has garnered about more than $300 billion, which is the size of SBI in less than 5 years of, in kind of 5 years of presence. That's the kind of the pace and the acceleration towards technology companies which is happening in the mainstream financial services, and which is leading to what we call, and you probably would have come across some of these terms, which is leading to neo banks, neo insurers, neo asset managers. But the kind of the bottom line in most of these cases is that you have technology which is primarily driving both access as well as ability to do business at a much better customer experience, as well as at a pricing, both from a risk basis as well as from a delivery basis, which is phenomenally different from what the incumbent financial institutions can do. The third aspect, which is again somewhere linked here, is the data aspect. I think it's almost become a kind of a common term, which is the data is the new oil or data is the new gold. But what is that in data that kind of really makes it stand? The biggest thing that kind of makes it stand out is that allows you to do customization, create contextual products for your customers and for the various businesses. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest elements out here, which is rather than offering the same product to various customers, can you offer customized products to what each of the individual needs or each of the businesses need? And one of the banes of the financial services sector has been that you pretty much kind of offer the same product to almost kind of the wider population. And to that extent, we've never been able to differentiate between a customer, what he needs, as well as what you're kind of willing to offer them. It's almost like saying that if there are 10 people walking on the road, that if each one of them needs to take a home loan, ideally, in an ideal world, each of them should be getting a home loan at a slightly different price and a home loan with a slightly different amount that has to offer. But generally, we haven't kind of gone down to that level of customization. But with data being available and the technologies around machine learning and artificial intelligence, as well as data analytics, which are available, you're able to do it in a much, much bigger and a better way. And finally, as I said, a big theme that would apply to a lot of economies, especially countries like India, which is the financing or kind of banking the unbanked. There is clear data around the fact that the penetration in India is kind of abysmally low, less than kind of single digits, depending on which product you look at. Non-life insurance is less than 1%, life insurance is 2%, retail credit is probably about 15%, asset management is even lower than that. A big opportunity for startups, and when I say startups, I'm using the term slightly loosely, is there are multiple white spaces in each of these segments where the incumbents, either because of lack of opportunity or their existing business models that don't allow them to cater to these segments in a kind of economically efficient way, they are not able to address them. And I think that's kind of where a big opportunity for the startups lie. And when we look at these startups which are coming out of India, there are massive amount of innovation which is happening in each of these segments. And that's kind of where I see that a lot of products that would get created out of within these startups in India, and China has done that well. And I clearly see that there is a great opportunity for a country like India is, can we create technologies for the masses that can address not 1 million people, but that can address 500 million people. And when you create those technologies for that kind of size and scale, they are easily exportable. And they can be exported to developed markets, they can be exported to other emerging markets, and you can take those solutions outside. We've kind of have built one of the largest payments platform in the country, but at the same time, we've actually taken a payments technology to even a country like Japan, where we have a very successful platform called PayPay, which is, even in a country like Japan, which is highly cash usage economy, demographics where the age is phenomenally different from India in terms of the average age, if I'm not wrong, is kind of in the 40s versus India, which is kind of a very young population. Even in that country, we've seen the digital adoption and the payment systems which are built on what we had kind of provided to a Japanese partner has been able to scale up and operate at a very, very massive scale. And I think when I look through the question that was posed here, which is, what are the global expectations from Indian startup ecosystem and the likely responses? I think the expectation is high, kind of create technologies and products which are kind of obviously built for the kind of the Indian ecosystem and the kind of the opportunities in the domestic market, but build them at scale and at a price point which make them uniquely exportable to the other parts of the world. And I think that's kind of where I see the next wave of growth for the Indian startups will come, where a lot of these startups would be able to offer these services to a lot of global clients, either as technology partners or either as kind of joint venture partners. So interestingly, I think given what the global economic situation is and what's happening at a political level, I see there is a unique opportunity that presents itself for India in terms of taking that leadership role in providing those technologies as well as solutions to the developed world. On that note, I'll thank once again for inviting me to speak in this panel, and really look forward to the discussions for the rest of